We want it to be a provocative event. We're not coming here this evening with any intentions of providing a blueprint of the organization of the future. There's no way we can predict the organization of the future, and there's no blueprint. The organization of the future is going to be a product of our action or inaction, informed or ill-informed, committed or apathetic. It really is up to us as to what happens to the organization of the future.
The corporate form has had its day in the court of public opinion through such things as the smartest guys in the room leading us headlong into the global financial crisis. Why should we organise business in the model of authoritarian power? Surely there's other ways of organising human endeavour. If you look at the valuation of companies and the way that that's changed, previously if you wanted to value a company, you added up the value of all its assets and subtracted its liabilities and divided by the number of shares, and that would give you what a price of a share should be. Nowadays, if you did that for a BHP or an IBM and so forth, you'd find that the share price is many multiples of what the tangible property of the company is. So where's that extra value coming from? And it really is in the valuation methods, which are based on net present values of future cash flows. They're only valuable to the extent that analysts in the market believe that an organisation can deliver on them. And that gets back to know-how. What do people do to work? And they do one of two things. It's operations or it's change work. In the operations area, we have a lot of research that's been done on very, very lean process-based organisations where there's minimal hierarchy. And I refer you to Morningstar, Semco, and also the assembly line at Toyota that's been put in place, where a worker on the assembly line can stop the entire assembly line without so much as a peek from a boss. Those workers are empowered to deliver customer value. On the change side of things, we've had for about a decade now a thing called project portfolio management, which is a way of organising individual projects and making them run coherently in terms of an organisational strategy. What role is there for all of those layers of hierarchy if you can run change through a portfolio management system backed by project management disciplines, and you can run operations as a process organisation using lean principles that are well understood? The best way to change culture is to change structure. I think that structure determines power relations, and power relations determine culture to a large degree.
The hardest thing for businesses is to let go of control, and I think that that's the biggest part of it. I think once you get into the mindset of having control, then everything has to be controlled, and you build this overhead and you build all these rules and all these policies, and you spend more time chasing them than delivering actual core kind of business value. And I think that at the point where you can kind of delegate control and let go of it, which is the hardest thing, I think that's when culture starts to actually flourish, and the positive type of culture as well.
There are lots of ways to think about it, but I think one useful way to think of it is what I call network leadership. And it's simply this idea that you lead within a network. One thing that implies, it is beyond your scope of direct control. Organizations of any kind create value not just within the organization, but in a vast extended network of customers, suppliers, partners, regulators. And so the role of a leader is not just within the organization. The role of the leader is absolutely across the extended network. And that requires clearly some different behaviors of wanting to motivate people or to be able to, or I suppose show an example of why people should be collaborating, why people should be creating value together. Value creation is almost always across organizational boundaries now. So that leadership must be, that network leadership is about demonstrating and facilitating the rise of creation value across borders. And that requires the example, it requires courage, it requires being able to show people what is possible. And I think that is, one frame to be able to think about shifts in leadership.
I think you do have to, in the environment you create, if you're in a conservative organization and you have innovative people or people that have been brought in to be innovative and specifically brought in to be creative or in a particular area, then you do have to think a lot about how much you protect them, because the last thing you want to do is normalize them into your institutional procedures because you've got nothing out of it as a company. So you need to protect them from the forces of conformance and compliance and all those good things. The operational norms, the risk departments of the world. You know, we've all got a risk department, right? If you bring someone who's an innovator in an organisation together with someone in risk, it's like matter and antimatter. It's a highly dangerous and explosive situation, and they regard each other like hand grenades with the pins removed. Creative people take risks. That's what they do. That is, you could define what they do by that. And so they are direct opposites. And a good manager will recognise that on day one and actually will put in place some shielding and a buffering effect between the two. And indeed between creative people and maybe their peers who are more operational. Freedom to manoeuvre, I think, is catches an awful lot of what's required. And I mean freedom to manoeuvre, again, within reasonable boundaries. You do need to put boundaries around people. You do need to give them goals.
So the one thing that will drive the success of organizations in the future are those that can draw to them the most talented. Because the most talented are the ones who have the choice. They can do what they want under their own terms. They are attracted, yes, by financial rewards, but far more by meaningful work, by challenging work, by working with great people. And only those organizations that are able to offer them will attract the most talent.
There will be organisational change. It will continue as a faster pace as has happened so far. You will move to organisations which are, I think, probably more network-based and certainly more collaborative, because the organisations that don't move in that direction will simply fail to compete. You can't make the right decisions in a competitive, knowledge-based world with that sort of technology out there. So I think the technology is going to have a huge impact.